Do you ever just want to tap out? You know, like in a wrestling match in the ring when it's a partner competition and the person that's in the ring has just been beaten and beaten and they just need to get to the ropes so that they can touch their partner and then they can tap out and have a much needed break. My name is Brooke McGlothlin, and this week we're working on Chapter 6 of Hope for the Weary Mom, When the Gentle Words Won't Come. Last night I visited my aunt's house. My husband was working, so it was just me and the boys that traveled about an hour and a half north to visit with my family and some of my friends. And so when we were almost there, I knew that it would be stressful because it was just us three. So when we were almost there, I spent a decent amount of time having a conversation with the boys about how to act during our visit. My boys are pretty aggressive, and they tend to go all the way or go home when it comes to playing, especially physical playing. I knew they would be playing with children last night that were smaller than them, who weren't used to such, high levels of physical aggression, so I made sure to explain the situation to them beforehand and ask them to lower their usual levels of craziness to accommodate these other smaller children. What I wanted was to visit with my aunt and my cousins in peace. I just wanted to sit back and rest and enjoy their company and catch up without having to worry about what my boys were doing for a couple hours. I hadn't seen them in almost a year, and I just wanted to spend some time with them without having to worry too much about the boys. Needless to say, it didn't happen that way. While my boys told me that they understood and they agreed to contain themselves while we were there for just a few hours, they didn't hold up their end of the bargain. I left my aunt's house last night really embarrassed by their behavior and feeling like I needed to apologize to my cousins for the way my boys acted around their small children. It wasn't that they did anything horribly wrong, just that they acted the same as they always do around children who really needed them to calm down a bit. And I was struggling. I left my aunt's house last night really mad at them because I had asked them several times throughout the night to calm down and they completely ignored me. So I started out mad at them, but as we got closer and closer to home and I thought more about it, I realized that I was really more mad at myself because I tapped out last night. The truth is, I wanted peace and quiet to enjoy myself more than I wanted to fight for my boys. So I tapped out and I let them get away with things that I probably shouldn't have. On top of that, I knew that they weren't in good moods and that if I disciplined them or corrected them, I was probably going to be embarrassed by their response to me. So I chose to let them be too rough around little ones rather than correct their behavior in an effort to save myself embarrassment, and ended up embarrassed anyways. In Chapter 6 of Hope for the Weary Mom, I talk about a time, it was one of the most poignant times of conversation that I ever had with the Lord. It was several years ago, and I told God in no uncertain terms that I was giving up on my boys. And as I cried out to him and told him all of the reasons that I was messing this up and he needed to choose someone else for the job, he whispered this to me. He said, "Don't give up. Your boys need someone to fight for them, and I've chosen that person to be you." Last night, friends, I did not fight for my boys. In a situation that probably called for a much higher level of parental involvement and correction, I tapped out and I let them misbehave. In Psalm 27, David says this, "One thing have I asked of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple." David had the heart of a poet. He was a worshiper, and I love that about him. His greatest desire was to be in the presence of the Lord as much as possible, just gazing upon the beauty of the Lord and hanging out in his presence. That was the desire of his heart, but it wasn't what he always got. David may have been a poet at heart, but God made him to have to become a warrior. Time after time in the Old Testament, we see David being a man of war. In fact, that's part of the reason God wouldn't allow him to be the man who built his temple. He had too much blood on his hands. What David wanted and what David got were often two different things, and I think it's the same with us. We can't tap out on our children. Regardless of what we want in any given moment, the nature of our children is such that we cannot tap out of the fight. Now, I know it doesn't seem fair. I know you might be thinking, "God, I have to tap out every once in a while. I need to survive this. I've got to have a break. You can't possibly expect me to keep my game face on all the time." But I think he does. God promises us rest and shelter and renewal as we follow him, and there will be plenty of times in your life when you'll get that. You'll get what you need to keep going. But at their core, our responses to the situations we encounter as we raise our children matter to God. He never taps out on us. Can I say that again? God never taps out on us. And since he's called us to be the ones to fight for our children, we can't tap out on them. Nobody said this parenting thing was going to be easy, especially when we're parenting what I like to call hard to handle children. How many of you have those? I have 2 of them. Today, I want to ask God to give you the strength not to tap out on your children. Mamas, let's stay in the fight, even if we'd rather not. Just pray the Lord's blessings on you today as you go through the rest of this chapter and the rest of the book. Make sure and read through it and engage with us. If you want to, just hit reply on the email that Megan's been sending out, and we'd love to hear from you. Have a great day, moms.